Yes, that was a long yes. We're back with the Shutdown Inning Podcast. This is episode number 16. Steven Rissotto here, Tylor Hall as well. Tylor, what's going on?
Hey, everybody. Hey, just enjoying a good weekend and looking forward to some good baseball talk with you, my friend. How's your weekend?
It was good, but it seems like everything is just such a downer with this weather. Like I was thinking about the
Yeah.
weather, and I looked at my weather box app, and it's just not gonna stop anytime soon. Like next week is all
Yeah.
rain and going into the next week after that, and I'm ready for spring. I guess technically rain does count as spring weather, but I'm ready for like my mid 60s back here in the Bay.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been cold and rainy up here in Sacramento. It's been like in the high 40s, low 50s a lot recently, and of course the rain as well. So definitely looking to getting that behind us. But I was talking to my wife earlier, and I was like, in a few months we'll wish it was in the 50s again because we'll get into the hundreds up here. So
Yeah, no, yeah, just mid 60s or 70 maybe once, but yeah, we've been around low 50s, high 40s as well. But down in Arizona and Jupiter, Florida, or not Jupiter, Florida, just Florida in general. I don't know why I was thinking specifically Jupiter, but
also Jupiter, but yes.
yeah, also Jupiter, Florida. Yeah. The weather seems to be holding up just fine for spring training. All 30 teams at this point have played um decent amount of games, about a week's worth. And we're almost to opening day. I know we keep saying that every episode, but we're almost there. But I guess the big story, and we've talked about it so much on this podcast, and I'm sure the listeners are going to say again, but we're going to roll through this. We're getting a chance to kind of see how the new rules work a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we're
Uh,
not talking about the rules themselves anymore.
yeah,
Now we're seeing them in action, so it is a little different. So bear with us. We got to
mhm,
talk about what we're seeing now, and not just what Manfred makes us watch.
yeah,
But I think the one thing I wanted to talk about, Stephen, as far as the rules, because we've seen them in action. People have opinions on all of them, but I knew it was only going to be a matter of time. And we're already seeing it in spring training, the gamesmanship with some of these new rules and how people are kind of using it to their advantage. One that I saw was Max Scherzer had an at bat with Adams from, was it where is he now? I don't even remember what team he's on now, but basically froze him, so he had to take his like only timeout that he got, and then Scherzer just stayed on the rubber, ready to go. And right when Adams set both feet back in, he was pitching. And so, if you can get a guy to, if he's out of timeouts and you can get him to step in the box and he can't, whoa, timeout. No, here's Scherzer firing at you. I thought that was really interesting. And that's a scary tactics, but might make guys think earlier in the at bat about burning a timeout because they might not want to step in with two strikes and have a pitch on their way already.
yeah. No, that's a weird one there. And it was funny. I was looking at Twitter and I saw somebody say that the guys that you didn't expect to like the rule. Like Scherzer was against it, if I'm not mistaken, last year, when it came out, when it was leaked that, MLB was going to be doing this. Max Scherzer was like, no way, and then Madison Bumgarner came out today and Bumgarner said that it's the best thing to ever happen since he's been in the league. And it's like, it's crazy that some of these older school pitchers are embracing this. But in terms of what happened with Scherzer, like, I think at that point, right, the hitter just has to use those 8 seconds like a little better, right? If a pitcher's doing that to him, maybe you get in right at like 10, 9, then you get in, but you
Yeah.
risk the strike being called against you. But another thing that I saw was, and this is a loophole that pitchers are going to use. And the Scherzer one is a loophole too, because like we know how important timing is to a hitter. But I've seen this in college games and it's happening every single day. There's a clip going out of a hitter getting rung up on strike three because he's not ready, but the pitcher's not even on the mound. Have you seen these videos where like the
Yeah.
hitter it goes to 8 and the hitter's waiting on the pitcher, but the pitcher's like on the back of the mound and the pitcher gets a strikeout. Like I would be
Yeah.
surprised if that is not changed
Yeah.
by opening day. It has to, right?
Yeah. They got to put something in where, like, if the pitcher's not on the rubber at 8 seconds, like once the pitcher takes the rubber, you have like a second to be set if you're
Mhm.
below the 8 seconds. But yeah, I mean, pitcher gets to just you can almost bait a hitter, especially right now while guys are still getting used to it. And they're like, oh, the pitcher's not on their mound, I'll take an extra second out of the box, and then nope, strike.
Yeah,
So
that's like the most unacceptable thing I've seen where like the pitcher is like not even on the mound and he gets a strikeout. Doesn't do anything. It's
yeah,
not like he's waiting on the hitter. The hitter's waiting on him.
yeah,
And that's the only reason he's not ready is because the pitcher's not ready. And I don't know, it's just a weird thing and I think it will get I'd be shocked if they go into the season with that happening. Cuz that's a loophole, but yeah, no, it's gamesmanship and we knew that like this was going to happen. We knew that they were going to try and find little loopholes and sneak attacks and we're seeing it I guess on full display. But
yeah, yeah. And then the other one, everyone with the shift is gone, and then so the Red Sox decided to, we'll just shift with our left fielder instead of the shortstop and the second baseman. Joey Gallo was up, and they just moved the left fielder over to where the second baseman used to play, and they put some pictures out of like the whole where you can see every defender, and even the shortstop was still pretty much up the middle. The center fielder played like a little shade closer to left field, but the thing that people have always said for the shift for years is, oh, just learn to go the other way, and it's extremely tough. But I mean, if you can hit a hard ground ball through the left side of the infield, you could be running for a while if that becomes a thing.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I was indifferent with the shift. Like I was fine with it there. I was fine with it, kind of being, abbreviated a little bit, but I'm all for this. For the most part, I think pitchers should or defenses should try to position their guys where they want to. And I was talking to a buddy from high school about this, and we were saying that like Joey Gallo, he didn't go the other way for the shift, like for the for the infield shift. So
Yeah.
why would he go the other way for an outfield shift too? But I
Well,
guess
if you
extra
if you
bases.
yeah, I mean, you're at
Yeah,
least a double if you get it over there, where before it was like, okay, I'll try to go the other way and get a single if I'm lucky. Well, now if you get lucky, your slugging percentage is going through the roof.
yeah, and usually like Joey Gallo going the other way or Joey Gallo trying to go the other way isn't as effective of a hitter as Joey Gallo trying to pull a pitch. So like if you open that spot up and you have Joey Gallo trying to do things that he's not normally trying to do, you
Yeah.
probably expose a hole. So
Yeah, there's going to be some give and take on, teams are going to do this kind of stuff and get the benefits, and then they're going to get burned a few times. And using Gallo as the example, since it happened to him, all he has to do is get it through that left side 2, maybe 3 times, and then teams are going to stop doing it.
can you
So,
imagine the reaction of a pitcher if you get like a routine fly out to left and it just falls?
man,
That would be
that
painful.
oh yeah, but yeah, so it's interesting to see this how the guys are using these new rules to kind of still find an advantage or to loophole around them. But like you said, we've talked about rules every podcast for
Yeah.
like 5 episodes now, so we don't need to beat a dead horse, but it is interesting to see some of this stuff in action. And
Yeah.
hopefully we do see a
Yep.
few tweaks by opening day, like you said.
And I've changed my mind on the pitch clock so much, but I think for the most part, I'm in favor again. That might change,
Yeah,
by the time we record next. But I
I
think
mean,
it's
I think that one loophole that we were talking about needs to be, closed up. I still think, for my personal taste, it's a little fast still. Like,
yeah,
I mean, even the way we consume baseball is going to be so much different now, and I think that'll be the weird part once we're watching games and there's no like, the color guy is going to be like speeding through stuff because the play-by-play guy is going to have to be talking every 15 seconds.
yeah,
So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think, we've talked about before, 20 seconds was already like the fastest worked. So I would have been happy with like a 25 or 30 second, and then maybe they can always change it. We'll see. But, and
yeah,
I still want to see it more in live action, so.
yeah, exactly. Not a lot of replays now on the broadcast. So a guy hits a home run, and you might not get the shot of him high fiving in the dugout. It might just go straight to replay.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big change. But yeah, no, definitely an ongoing thing that we'll probably discuss, even though we say that, every time, no more clock, no more clock.
Hey,
There's still something interesting
stuff
that
is
happens.
happening. There's new
Yep,
stuff that's happening, and we're going to see
absolutely.
that for probably all year. We'll find different little things that happen that are crazy. But yeah, I mean, to kind of move on from the
Mhm.
rules, last week we were talking about a lot about Manny Machado. Just he came up and we are talking about his, setting a deadline and wanting an extension and how he would be, the second best free agent on the market. And then literally the day after we recorded, Manny Machado signed an 11-year, $350 million extension through 2022 through 2033 with the Padres. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel like that's happened to us a few times now where something happens like the Monday that we come out and it's like, oh, we just talked about that. I think it was the Correa thing where that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Manny Machado, yeah, no, it's good that spring training could be used for, time to get deals done like this because a guy shouldn't be worried about that hitting in the opening day. And in Machado's case, he was open about it. We talked about it last week. He was open about wanting to test the market, definitely wanting to up his deal that he was signed to a few years ago, worth about 300 million. I think it was 10 years, 300. Now he gets 11 years, 11 years,
350.
350. Um, I mean, no, yeah, I was critical a little bit of the timing. I thought that the way it created a headline, I hope that there wasn't any distraction in the clubhouses or in the Padres clubhouse, and that's gone. That's going to be forgotten about. And Manny Machado deserves to
Yeah.
get paid. He's one of the best stars in the game. I think he's one of the best leaders to his respective team.
Yeah.
I'd put him against anybody in that category as well. So yeah,
I
congrats to
mean, it's
Machado. They're going to be paying a lot of guys for a long time. That's all I have to
yeah, it's
say.
yeah, it's kind of like the opposite of, last week your concern was what kind of riff could this, not necessarily riff, but distraction to the clubhouse. And now they know they have their clubhouse leader for the next 11 years. So
Hmm.
it's the exact opposite now because they got their deal done. And, hey, these guys, like, you and I are both, pro players getting the money that are out, the money that's out there. And, the thing for me, like you said, they're paying a lot of guys for a long time. This contract's going through, I think, Machado's age 41 season, which some of the long contracts we saw earlier this offseason are paying guys through, late 30s, early 40s. But the parallel to this, like I mentioned last week, is now I think this definitely, unless the Padres have a mint below Petco Park that we don't know about, I don't see how they can afford Juan Soto now long term.
I have no idea. I think I'm going to side with you on that one. I think he might be the odd man out. Um, but they got that. They still have a good core even without him, and they have a
Oh
core that's going
yeah,
to be there for a very long time. I mean, you mentioned
yeah. I
Machado,
mean,
age 41. I mean, Tatis is going to be older. He signed like a 14-year deal.
yeah,
Xander Bogaerts was just dinged to a deal. Darvish is going to be there until he's older. I mean, that's going to be quite, the veteran team, and I'm going to be interested to see in the coming years if they could really afford it in the years ahead. Because, I don't know where this money's coming from. San Diego's not a huge market. So,
yeah. I mean, I guess they're just going for it and hoping to get the profits now.
yeah, good for them though.
Gonna be
Good for them
scary.
having an owner that wants to spend.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it several times here on the timeline. These managers aren't as poor as they like to. It's running a baseball team. They like to cry that how expensive it is, but they're making a lot of money, and so I'd rather see that go into the product on the field. So yeah, I mean, as a Giants fan, I hate that it's a team in their division, but as a baseball fan, I'm stoked that you have a team like the Padres, where 4 years ago, if you asked where the Padres were, they're like probably a lower mid market. Like they're not like a
Mhm.
small market, but they're like on the lower end of like the mid tier, I would say.
But they're in a
So
good spot. Baseball city, nothing else is there. They have developed this like
it's
outstanding fan base. And like whether they
It's
hopped on the
not,
bandwagon or not, like it's still a
yeah.
pretty awesome fan base, you know.
Yeah, it's not hard to lure guys to want to live in San Diego. So
That too, and this is a complete shade, by the way. We're talking about the money. Complete shade on the guy from the San Diego Union Tribune that wrote about how baseball players are being paid too much. And he was like, well, you know, if a baseball player is making $30 million, then a teacher should be making 10. Who has a bigger impact on the world? You know, so you know that guy's take. It was more than that. I don't want to go into it because it was a mess. But shout out Machado, big deal. Congrats to him, and shout out to this Union Tribune guy who I hope it hurts the inside of him.
but I mean, yeah,
Uh,
I mean, to kind of move along from that,
yes.
the other, spring training. I usually don't pay attention to spring training stats at all. It's good to see guys swinging the sticks well, or having some good outings on the mound. But the thing that I pay attention to more is, can guys stay healthy? Are they going to be, or teams going to be at full strength when they get to opening day? And there's been a few pretty big injuries here in the first few weeks of spring training. Gavin Lux, ACL, I believe it was. And if you saw the video, you saw a leg bend away it probably shouldn't. So that was tough, especially for the Dodgers. I guess we can kind of, I'll go down through the three that I have in mind, and we can kind of talk about each one a little bit. But then, shameless plug for Rizzocast, friend of the program, Tyler Glass now has a strained oblique. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. And Joe Musgrove for the Padres, who we just talked a bit about, he dropped a dumbbell on his toe and I think broke it. And I haven't seen a timeline yet, but I know they've said he won't be available for opening day, it looks like. So, yeah, those are some big. I mean, for me, all of them can be pretty big, but I think Lux, the Dodgers let their whole left side of the infield walk this offseason, and Lux was a big guy they were going to lean on, and now he's gone for the year. And so I think that'll be a big one for the Dodgers, especially trying to fend off those Padres.
Yeah, and it does suck for him. And whenever a team loses an X factor, that's big. But whenever a young guy like that loses an entire season, and a season where he was supposed to be a major part for really the first time, in his big league career, a guy who they were going to depend on every day, finally getting a chance to play probably one position, probably, be an everyday guy at one spot in the batting order. Um, it sucks. He was going in
Yeah.
with high hopes, I think, this year. And I was listening to people talk about the injury, and they were saying right away they knew it was a torn ACL. All the people that watch football knew exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it happened, those kind of things, they happen in a wicked way. He was going to third base, trying to like avoid the throw, I think, from the third baseman. And it was just
Yeah.
a weird movement, and boom, your season's over. So
Yeah.
that one's tough.
Yeah, my first reaction was just like, I felt so bad for him because, like you said, young guy, he's been talked about coming up through the Dodgers system for quite a while, and he just kind of has had, they've had such a loaded roster that he hasn't really had an opportunity to play every day, or at least have some consistency. And he finally had that opportunity. Could have been a chance for a breakout year for him, and now that's gone, and now he's got to sit out for a year, probably feeling pretty down on it. And then he's got to rehab and hope he comes back where he was.
Yeah. And even worse for a guy like Gavin Lux, like you mentioned the rehab. By the time this guy comes back, with the way the Dodgers historically operate the roster, will he even have a spot?
Exactly. Yeah. I
Because they're
mean,
so good. And granted, they didn't do it this offseason that well. But like usually the Dodgers we know of the last 10 years, if they have a hole, they go out and get someone because they can, because they have the
yeah,
resources.
they
And
still
like,
might. I mean, the trade
mhm.
market is open now through July. So, I mean,
So, and especially a spot like the middle of the field, those guys are at a premium to get. And the Dodgers still have a great farm system. They could do it. They got Miguel Rojas this offseason. That lowers the blow a little bit because he's a guy that's been playing every day in Miami. But that's got to hover in the head of Gavin Lux is, will I even have a spot when I come back, in 2024, which is scary.
yeah,
And as for Glass now, he can't catch a break. I mean,
no,
he can't catch a break. I don't know if the Rizzo cast appearance, um, you know,
the curse of Rizzo
the curse
cast.
of Rizzo cat. I mean, he had Tommy John surgery after that, and he didn't blame all of it, but a lot of that was because he wasn't using the sticky stuff, and he
Yeah.
went cold turkey one day, and then his elbow hurt the next day, and now he's got, what is it, an oblique, which,
Oblique,
I mean, that's
which
just
those can linger too. So
mhm.
hopefully he doesn't rush back. I know he's probably chomping at the bit to get back, but
And I
six
do,
to eight
yeah,
weeks, like
and
take the 8 weeks, man.
yeah, in the Rays, they normally have a great pitching staff. I'm sure they still do this year going into the season. But the thing about Glasnow is that, he's got the best stuff probably on that staff when he's healthy, and we just haven't seen him. We haven't seen him pitch, and the oblique, it sounds exactly like a spring training injury. It really
Yeah,
does. Like coming off of a cold off season and then going right into all the stuff that you have to do when camp opens up. It seems
yeah,
like a spring training injury. So we hope that
yeah,
Glass now gets better.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's fun to watch pitch, and I know you have that personal connection too. I'm sure you pull for him a little bit even harder now than you did before. So
Always.
yeah, hopefully he can come back.
And
And
Musgrove
then
was going to start opening day. So that's another, in the Padres, we've talked about their depth. Not a lot there in the
yeah,
rotation.
yeah, their one question mark for a lot of people was their rotation, and now they're starting without their ace for the season. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, I haven't seen a timetable yet. It might have come out, but he's at least missing some starts, and you never want that with your ace, especially out of the gate. So
Yeah, and it's a weird injury for like a pitcher because you kind of need like both feet,
yeah,
you need the foot that you push off and you need the landing foot. And when one of them lacks, you feel it in your upper body. And I'm sure that's something that the Padres want to avoid with him and get him the full health because, again, the best pitcher on their staff. So it's kind of an unfortunate trend here that's happening, but hopefully all those guys get better. I wonder like what the scene was in the weight room when that happened. Like, was there a
yeah.
shriek? Was there just like a ow? Was there some profanity?
I'm gonna
Uh,
guess. I'm gonna throw some profanity out there. That's my. I'm
mhm.
just thinking about how I would react, and there's probably some colorful language.
Yeah, tennis shoes, slides. I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta imagine the guy was not wearing great support shoes, or maybe the dumbbell was dropped from a decent enough height. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
that's neither
mean,
here nor there.
yeah. I mean, a lot of things could go into breaking your toe with a dumbbell that we just don't know. But yeah, so those are some key injuries heading into opening day that teams are and for the whole season in the Lux situation. But some big injuries so far in spring training. Hopefully, not as eventful the rest of the way on that front.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's why you draft your fantasy team late in spring. I can't stress that enough. That's why everybody's going for the week of the 25th or the weekend of the 25th and a little
Yeah,
earlier. I know I
yeah,
got a
I've
few
got like
next week.
5 drafts. I got to try to make sure on my calendar. Like,
I have
geez.
7, but these are the injuries that do that. And another thing that we were going to talk about was the Vegas. So Vegas recently hosted a series between the A's and I believe the Reds as well.
Yeah,
Um, and it was they filled up the stadium there in Vegas, and it was an exhibition spring training game normally. And I can't remember, teams maybe at the end of the year, like how the Giants and A's have a Bay Bridge series, but I've never seen one like right smack in the middle of spring training, like at just a random site.
yeah,
But Vegas is lobbying for wanting the A's to move there, and this is no surprise. MLB wants that too. Um, it's just a weird situation. I don't even know where to begin with all the city council votes on what's going on in Oakland, but
yeah. I
I think it will
mean,
happen eventually.
yeah. I mean, I think it's just a matter of time now, which really sucks. Even though I'm not an A's fan, I'm a baseball fan, and the Bay Area is an important place to me, and I have a lot of a lot of friends who are A's fans, and it just sucks how they've been kind of put through the ringer the last several years, and now Major League Baseball's come out and like Manfred's basically said our focus is on Vegas. So it's like, they're not putting an exciting product on the field really, to be honest. So like I don't know how many people are going to go out to
Mm.
support a team that's not that fun to watch that is trying to basically has one foot out of the door. So,
Yeah.
you know, I I've talked to a lot of my A's fan friends about it, and it's just yeah,
Clayton.
it sucks. Clayton, what's up, man? Hey, baby. Yeah, it really sucks. And, I guess they'll probably have at least 3 or 4 more years of the A's in Oakland, because it's going to take a while to build a stadium. It's going to have to be a retractable roof in Vegas, because it gets into the high one teens in the summer on the Strip.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's going to be just kind of a weird vibe in Oakland for a few years, I imagine, because I just think it's just a matter of time until we have to talk about the Las Vegas A's. And Oakland in general, man, they had 3 professional sports teams like 4 years ago, and now they're on the cusp of having 0, and that's just terrible.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate, and I think it's funny that all the fears of moving a sports team to Vegas 10 years ago are now thrown out the window by the way
Yeah.
these leagues have kind of set up, partnerships with gambling sites and have adapted that, and the way media has gone towards it. Um, and like we hear a lot about like the teams moving away, and it's just the worst thing that could happen to a fan base. Like, you always hear the ones, whenever I think of that, I think of the Ken Burns documentary, where there's the episode where the Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Giants moved to the West Coast, and those fans were devastated. And I'm not saying that A's fans are Brooklyn and New York
Yeah.
baseball fans, but there might not be a whole ton of them, but there's a large passion for Oakland A's baseball that is in the Bay Area, and I've seen it the past 10 years. I've seen all of it get phased out quickly. I've seen
Yeah.
flagship radio stations ignore the A's and ignore the coverage of them. I've seen them, the stadium just not be close to anywhere near standards, and the fans suffering through that, and the players suffering through that. But like in the last 10 years, they've just, nobody cares about them in the Bay Area anymore. It seems they're not getting any attention in the newspapers and the TV stations. It's gone downhill. And I do think, as much as I hate to say it, I do want to see baseball in Oakland, but it might be the best move long term to go somewhere else. I hate to say it, but it's just it's not working. It seems like there's very little effort, definitely no effort on MLB's side. And the effort on the Oakland A side, it's delayed
Questionable.
by everything. Yeah, it's delayed
Yeah.
by the ballpark efforts and everything that's going on and the payroll. And it's, for whatever reason, it's not working. And it does suck to see for those fans, but hopefully it gets solved soon, and, it doesn't have to be that way. But just a weird situation.
Yeah.
Weird
Yeah.
trial run, too.
Yeah, I think, didn't you say it was a home game for the Reds, but they were selling A's gear at the
Yeah. Yeah, it was a home game for the Reds technically, and the team shop was just stuffed with A's gear. And the president of the Las Vegas Aviators, which is the triple A team for, it's either the Mets or the Diamondbacks is Reno. Might be the Mets. It might be somebody else now. I don't know. I'll have to look. It definitely used to be the Mets, because Wally Backman was.
It's the AAA affiliate of your Oakland A's, actually.
Oh, shoot. Okay. I thought the A's was still Nashville, but Nashville Sounds might not be a. Okay, yeah. It moves so much. But anyhow, I still think the Fresno Grizzlies are AAA for the Giants sometimes. No. But yeah, no, the president was like, yeah, we want this to happen. And of course he's going to say that. Any person in Vegas is going to lobby for a baseball team. So we shall see how that works. And I guess moving on, we did want to say something about Mike Wills, who is the Rays radio broadcaster, who passed away at 58 years old. He has been broadcasting for the last 18 seasons in the Tampa Bay broadcast booth. And I mean, when you have a guy, doing that for 18 seasons, the fans are going to warm up to him. And he was just broadcasting a game yesterday, and the news came out this morning that he passed away. And I know I recognized his voice from some of the Rays calls. He's the Rays win, Rays win. So we did want to mention that, and our condolences, of course, go out to the Rays organization and everybody that knew him.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, announcers, especially when they've been around for that long, they almost, especially in baseball more than others, they become like part of your family, because you listen to them every night for 6 months. Giants fans who I know are most of our listenership.
Mm.
We've been very lucky for, Kruk, Kipe, Miller, even, Dave Fleming's the kid, and he's been there for 15 years now, almost.
Hasn't aged once.
Um, and I know Giants fans, they consider like Kruk and Kipe like an extension of their family. I'm 38 years old and I don't really remember. I very vaguely remember a life before Kruk and Kipe were telling me about Giants baseball. And so, when you see an announcer, pass away basically while doing the job, I mean, like you said, he called a game yesterday, and now, they don't get to that, extended part of their family is gone now. So, like you said, I just felt like, just because, announcers are such a big part of the game, I wanted to make sure we brought it up, and I know you did too. And so, like you said, condolences to the Wills family and the Rays organization. So,
Yeah, no,
um,
definitely. Very sad.
yeah, absolutely. But to turn it around to a brighter topic, the Rays and the Diamondbacks both came in the league at the same time, and the thing about spring training is people are trying things out. They're doing stuff they're not typically doing, and you kind of see stuff you don't see every day during the regular season. And the Arizona Diamondbacks high A team is managed by Ronnie. I'm probably going to butcher this. Gajownik. And I think she's the first female manager in affiliated baseball. And today she got to shadow the manager Tori Lavillo, and she was the bench coach. And so that's awesome. Another kind of Giants tie with Alyssa Nacken, and it's great to see. If you know ball, you know ball, and so it doesn't matter where you're from, male, female, whatever. And so it's awesome that, she's getting this opportunity. And I guess she didn't realize how big of I was reading a story about it earlier. She didn't realize how big of a deal it was. And then someone walked up and said, like, you're trending on Twitter right now, like in like the fifth inning. And she's like, what? So, hopefully, she'll get more opportunities to move up the ranks, and I'm sure it was an awesome day for her. So it's always good to see stuff like that, just people getting their shot.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And this is just yet another milestone for women in sports. And it's picked up the last few years, and it's going to continue to pick up. And I think it's for the better, because there's a lot of people that there's a lot of females that love baseball and have never gotten the opportunity. And now a lot of the trailblazers in the game are opening up the doors to coaching at the professional level. And Alyssa Nacken, you brought it up, is a great example of this. And there's people in the Giants organization and on the coaching staff that say she's a possible big league manager. So I mean, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I think it's definitely awesome. And you hear a lot of the players, all the players, they have daughters, they know what this means for a young girl to look up at their screen and see a woman in a baseball uniform in a baseball dugout. So it's definitely an influential moment, and congrats to her. Hopefully she has a good season this year with the team that she's leading at the minor league level for Arizona. And
Yeah. And if you don't like it, go out to your front porch and keep yelling at clouds.
exactly, yell at clouds, because at the end of the day, there's that person is not in the dugout, but if a female is, I'd say it's a pretty good, because all the trolls on Twitter like to talk, but none of them are actually doing the job. So
Yeah. And it's usually the people that won't show their face on Twitter. Go figure.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, congrats to Ronnie Gajownik, and yeah, hopefully the start of an amazing career in affiliated, major league affiliated ball.
5 years and a woman will be managing. 5 years.
You
My
heard it
prediction.
here first. Episode 16 of the Shutdown Inning, 9:02 on March 5th, within the 5 years. And I don't think you're wrong. I could very well be sooner. So yeah, it's great to see, that progress, not just in baseball, but across sports. There's been some female coaches in the NFL and the NBA, not head coaches yet, but, awesome.
And if you look at like the
Love to see it.
definition, and if you look at the definition of like what a manager needs and the tools that a manager needs, no way does it just boil down to like a man's job. You know what I'm saying?
No, definitely not.
Like a lot
Yeah,
of it's like communication,
it's
strategy.
yeah. If you're a person, you have and you can have the tools to be a manager or a head coach. So
100%.
absolutely. So yeah. And then the last topic we wanted to talk about before we get into, we promised you we're doing lists, and so Steven and I have some lists for you to listen to. But
We had fun.
the
We had
last
fun with the top 100 players last time by MLB Network, so we got inspired.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so the World Baseball Classic, we get to see some. I'm looking forward to it because like I love when countries compete against each other. I love the Olympics, and also we'll be watching some like highly competitive baseball in the first week and a half of March. That's awesome.
I can't wait for the fans to get into this and back their countries. And I can't wait to watch teams that maybe I don't know anything about, but to watch and to follow them throughout this tournament. Like, watch the Great Britons compete and say, oh, that shortstop for Great Britain's pretty good. And look at some of these guys who have major league prospects, especially in countries like Japan and Korea, where, I'd say a lot of the international talent is going to be really on display. Like if there's any countries that MLB scouts are looking at right now, it's those countries that oftentimes feed MLB organizations, because a lot of the other ones like USA, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, we all know those guys for the most part. So it's going to be cool to see some new faces internationally, and I'm excited for the atmosphere. I love it, and it's going to be all televised, national TV. Going to be fun.
Yeah, and I think first game I think is Wednesday night. You said over in Japan. They have to start the games over in Asia a little bit earlier because whoever wins, comes out of there for the finals rounds are gonna have to travel halfway across the world, so they're getting started a little bit earlier. So that starts on Wednesday night. And yeah, I mean, I was trying. You probably saw me looking at my screen a lot. I was trying to find, but about some of these other countries that we don't necessarily know a lot about their team, and I'm blanking on it. It was a European team, but it was like they were talking. They had every guy come on the camera and talk about like what their actual job was, because these guys aren't professional baseball
was
players.
it Czech Republic? I think it was
Czech Republic. Yeah. One guy was like a lawyer. One guy was in marketing. One guy was like, one guy did, imported baseball gear to the Czech Republic. But, they're not professional baseball players. And so it's cool to see them get this stage. They might not make it very far, but they're getting this stage. And that's awesome. They're going to get to tell their grandkids about when they played against Mike Trout. And,
exactly. That's what it's about. Even if they suck and all odds, and it would be a great Cinderella story, but all odds are pointing that they, obviously will suck and they'll get eliminated early, but it's the experience that matters. And these guys, like you mentioned, they're working normal jobs. They're going to remember this for the rest of their lives, playing on national TV, having an entire country back them up. And it's part of a bigger, for countries like that, it's really part of a bigger effort. Because like the Czech Republic, baseball's not played. Like, let's be honest, I think there's a league in the Czech Republic, but for the most part, that's, these are countries where baseball needs to, get some attention in. And I think that's what the WBC does. Now you get a handful of Czech Republic, kids to watch baseball probably for the very first time. So they're doing a service to their country and the future of baseball in different countries.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, baseball needs to be global if they want to keep expanding, and so
And Tuesday night, by the way, that's the first game. It's Cuba versus the Netherlands, and Cuba for the first time ever is having players that defected. They're going to be allowed to play for the national Cuban team. And Netherlands, by the way, they're one of my underdogs, so shout out to them. Bam Bam Mullins, the manager.
Yeah, Bam Bam and Dave Greshner.
That's right. Didn't know that. Shout out Wotus. Happy birthday, Ron Wotus, by the way, the other day.
Oh, really? Whoa. Happy birthday, my man. But yeah, so yeah, right. Come back and tell us all about it. We can get the first interview after the book comes out.
Where are the bodies?
Yeah. But yeah, looking forward to the World Baseball Classic, and hopefully everyone else is too. And I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit next week after we have some games to talk about. And so, yeah, I mean, a lot to be excited about for the World Baseball Classic. So enjoy it, everybody. If you weren't planning on watching it, just check out a game. Just watch one.
Yeah,
It'll be
just
fun.
one. Yep. How about those lists?
All right, yeah, and so Steven and I, well, we're gonna try to come up with a list every week or maybe every other. We'll make something happen, but we decided, after we talked about MLB's top 100 last week, let's come up with a list for this week, and so we each decided to list the three unbreakable records, not necessarily in order, but just talk about some unbreakable records. So that could be individual games, single season, career, and so Steven, lead us off. What are we starting off with?
Yeah, and these are not in any specific order, and we're probably going to leave, collectively between the two of us, we're going to leave some off that are pretty big deals, and maybe some that are obvious that we just didn't want to include for the point of, talking, and some of them people may have already known. But just to start off, I mean, this one is probably one of the well-known ones, but Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. I don't see this ever being broken for the sole reason that pitching is better than it's ever been, and you'd have to do it against so many different pitchers. Now, when Joe DiMaggio hit in 56 straight games in
Yeah.
1941, he was facing the same teams over and over again, and those teams, they didn't really have a lot of changing parts in them when it came to pitching. So you faced, the starting pitcher for most of the game, and then you'd have the same bullpen guy come in. So it was much, easier for DiMaggio to get a book on some of these pitchers. Nowadays, it's completely different, and the hits are just less frequent. The batting averages
Yeah.
are less are less, and you're seeing more pitchers and more variety of pitching, and faster velocity, and all of that comes into play when you're trying to hit, in a consecutive games streak. I think the most recent one that actually had maybe halfway there almost, I believe Jimmy Rollins one year got to like the mid 30s, which is impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Utley got to 35 in 06.
Yeah, I mean the media
Jimmy Rollins
attention.
got to 38 in 05 and 06. His
Yeah,
bridged the gap from one season to another.
and that one, and because we just saw Aaron Judge break the Roger Maris single season home run record, and that
In the
was
American
never
League.
in the American League. Sorry, yeah, the American League. I'm not one of them. And like that was never a record that was particularly like, oh, this is never going to be broken. That was never on that level, right? So this
Yeah.
one is, which I think would make the media attention that much more crazy.
Yeah, and I know you're a big DiMaggio guy, so you might know the exact number, but didn't he have his 56 game hit streak and then his bat disappeared for like a game, and then he went on another he had one game where he didn't get a hit, and then he went on another 20 or 30 games right after that?
Yeah, no, it was something crazy like that. He started another one, I know for sure, but I do believe that his on base streak did not stop, if I'm not mistaken. Because on base streak, I think the on base streak is held by Ted Williams, and I think it's in the 70s. And that's like, if you take a walk, it will count.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
surprised that's not Bonds, to be honest.
yeah, no, exactly. But I know uh Ted Williams is up there for that one. And I know Matt Holliday had like a nice one going a few years ago, but um yeah, no, I'd say I think that he did. I do recall something about the missing bat, but I know he also started a different streak altogether. But
Yeah.
what a crazy 1941 season. That was the same year where Williams hit 400. So
Yeah. Yeah. And,
that's another one.
but just kind of looking, there's, he's at 56 and there's five guys that have gotten into the 40s.
Pete Rose, yeah.
Pete Rose got to 44. The two of the others were in the 1800s. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, for how the game is now, and it's probably not going to trend back to high batting averages anytime soon. So I think that's a solid pick.
And that's the type of thing where like people look at the newspapers and watch the news and they go, "Did he get a hit today? Did he get a hit today?" Like they wake up wanting to know. So it gets the whole country involved. Kind of like the home run chase in 98.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I guess, to piggyback off you, I'm going to go with also a consecutive streak, and I'm going with Cal Ripken Jr.'s 2,632 games straight played. I've said it, I'm a huge Cal Ripken fan. He's basically my favorite non-Giant growing up as a little kid, and one thing when I look at like records, especially, career records, I like to look at like, okay, like how long would you have to do this or that? Like for Bonds' home run record, like if you'd have to hit 50 home runs a year for like, what would it be, like 16 years, 15 and a half years. So for Ripken, that's over 16 years in a row of not missing a game. And for a number of reasons, I just don't see that happening. I think it's very rare to even have a guy play in every game in a season now, let alone 16 years in a row. And teams are with the money that these guys are making, rightfully so. But if a guy feels a little tweak, instead of running out there the next day because they don't want to lose their job or something, the team tells them like, no, you're resting, like you're taking the day off. And so another little caveat that I found when I was just like kind of looking up Cal, because I wanted the exact number of games. There was a stretch from June of 82 through September of 87 where he played 8,264 straight innings. So not even like not giving him a rest at the end of a blowout or anything. That is absurd. So I mean, that's five almost 5.5 seasons of not even missing an inning of action.
And that could even be like an injury thing. Like, he could get hit in the hand and like return the next day, but wasn't even taken out of the game for that. So, and all the extra inning games, gosh.
Yeah. So, he's the Iron Man for a reason. And so
I don't even know. Yeah, that one's not getting broken. I think the most consecutive games you have now is 300 guys get to, maybe. Like Whit Merrifield gets to like 350, and then, 2 years in a row at the most, I'd say. Because and this is an issue in the NBA right now that's being talked about, is the load management. And you're right, a lot of money being invested in these guys, and you have to have them healthy and you have to have them ready for the games that matter. So there's going to be rest. It won't happen again. No doubt.
Definitely.
Should I go to mine?
Yeah, go to your number 2.
Yeah, my number 2 is the Barry Bonds walks and I wrote down the wrong number of walks, but he got walked in 232 consecutive games in 2004. Or no, sorry, 232 overall walks.
We got consecutive games on the brain.
Yeah, that was on my brain. That's a lot of walks in a season, and there's very few players that pass 120. So they'd have to like almost double that to get to Barry Bonds' walk total. Yeah. And we're just never going to see, because now everybody could hit the ball out of the ballpark if needed. So, and these lineups, I think, are a little bit deeper with more power, per se, more guys that could do damage. And we're like the intentional walk, like we still see it occasionally, but in terms of just walking a guy that many times, pitching is just too good. They're not going to do that. And in terms of walking guys, I think there's two types of walking. There's walking a guy when you actually have like no control at all. And then there's walking a guy because you're flat out scared of him. And there's nobody in baseball right now that has the fear that Barry Bonds has, to where you can make a mistake one time in a series
and he's going to hit it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can't replicate the fear that Barry put into other teams. It was, and kind of what you talked about when you're afraid of a guy, I always called it the unintentional intentional walk. Yeah. Barry would get so many of those where the catcher just sets up in the outside corner and the pitcher basically just throws them through the right-handed batter's box because they wanted no piece of Barry. And it's just obscene how much that guy walked. And I agree. I don't think that's ever getting touched again.
And the on-base percentage numbers in those early like video game years, just insane. I mean, he was on base what was it, 70% of the games?
Yeah.
It's absurd.
Yeah, I mean, you could find a lot of things that Bonds did that will probably never be touched again. Maybe not the homers. We talked about this kind of before we hopped on. The homers, the way that the game's going now, you never really know. But everything else he did, like, you can't replicate that. And so Yes, I'll go on to my number two, keeping it in the Bay Area. Also, someone that I watched growing up, Ricky Henderson's stolen bases record. Um, maybe the game changes where stolen bases become a thing again, but even if they do, 1,406 career stolen bases. That's more than 50% more than Lou Brock, who was the previous record holder. And then just to throw it out there, 130 steals in 1982. Like, holy crap, 130 steals. That's almost a bag a game. I was actually at the game when he tied Lou Brock, and he like lifted the bag and everything, and then they pulled him out because they wanted to sell out the next game too, and everyone was pissed off because they pulled Ricky out of the game. But that was a cool, cool to see. I remember I still remember I was like upper deck, first base side, about even with the first base bag, and so that was really cool to see. But yeah, I mean, I talked about kind of throwing out numbers. I mean, 1,406, you could steal 100 bags for 14 years in a row and not even have the record. It's insane.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one. And I know they're trying to bring stolen bases back, but it will never get back to that capacity, at least soon.
I mean, right now, who like the league leader in steals is usually in like the 40s. Maybe someone creeps into the 50s.
40s, yeah. I think we could see a lot more 30-30 guys and a lot more 40-40 guys just because the home run and speed is, still there. There's a lot of guys that could do both. Julio Rodriguez, like Mike Trout when he was stealing bases too. There's definitely Acuna is a good example of a guy that's flirted with it a few years.
Earlier this week, I saw a quote where Ozzy Albies said that him, Harris, and Acuna are all going for 40-40 this year.
Perfect. See, they got the stolen base in their head. And I think all those guys are going to try to hit 40, but to hear them say that they want to steal 40 bases, it's kind of a cool thing. But yeah, Ricky, there's a funny thing about Ricky's stolen bases. I think there was one year in the 80s where he got hurt, and I think Harold Reynolds ended up leading the league in steals when Harold Reynolds was in Seattle. I don't know if you've heard this story. And Harold Reynolds finished with like 60 steals. And Ricky called him at the end of the year and was like, Ricky here. And like Ricky talks in, third person. He's like, Ricky here. 60 steals. You ought to be ashamed. Ricky would have had 60 steals by the All-Star break and then hung up on Harold Reynolds. That's one of my favorite stories. And then the other one is
so many good Ricky
the
stories.
John Olerud story with the batting helmet. That's another good one. But yeah, Howard Bryant just wrote a good book that was released in May of last year, and I got a few family members it because Ricky's still a Bay Area guy, lives in Hillsboro, and stops off at my uncle's butcher shop that he works at. So
nice.
I got him a Ricky plaque that Ricky ended up signing when he stopped by the store. So shout out to Uncle Mike. I know he's listening, but and Ricky's listening too, but that's a good one.
Absolutely.
Stolen bases.
Yeah.
And then what is this? My second one,
Your
my third one. Not an exact number. Now we did recognize before we started that Cy Young is the all-time leader in complete games with 749. That's never going to be broken. But just as a whole, nobody's getting close to the amount of complete games that there were even since the start of the 2000s. There was still a good amount of them. And then once the 2010 started, it decreased by a lot. So like back in the 60s, I mean, you had Juan Marichal completing most of his games, Koufax, Bob Gibson, all these guys pitched so deep in the games. And again, with the way that we're kind of, the baseball world has been treating pitching and arm usage and wanting to protect the arm, it's not going to happen. Strategy wise, it's not going to happen with teams letting their guys face the batting order for, the third and fourth time around. But it's not even really the performance, right? Because like Marichal and Gibson, those guys didn't pitch 9 scoreless innings every time. Like they would give up 2 runs, but they would stay in the game.
Yeah.
Now if you give up 2 runs, like that's just an automatic that you're not pitching deep into the game. And also the pitch count, guys are firing all their bullets early. Most of the guys are through 100 pitches through 6. I mean, so it's just not feasible with the way that pitchers are attacking hitters too. And
now, not to go back to it too much, but now with the pitch clock too, guys aren't, they're throwing a lot
Yeah.
quicker repetitions than they were before too.
Yeah. Roy
But yeah,
Halladay was the last guy, the last big horse that was completing games.
yeah, he's exactly who I thought of when you kind of brought up the 2000s into the 2010s. You used to see a guy every once in a while, the league leader would get into like double digits, not every year, but it wasn't, unfathomable. And then, now it's like the league leader. If someone gets like more than one, it's like, oh, wow. Like,
yeah. Shout out to Sandy Alcantara in Miami. He's out there completing games.
yeah. How many did he have last year? Wasn't it like 4?
Might have had 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, good call. And then the last one I'm going to go with is career wins, but as a manager, because I think wins as a pitcher.
Oh, this one's crazy. Yeah.
Kind of a joke, but so I'm going with Connie Mack's 3,731 managerial wins. I mean, no one else has even over 3,000. I mean, it's major news if someone gets to 2,000, which is like barely half of that. Bochy got there a couple years ago. Dusty got there, I think, last year. So, just think of not even just winning 300 or 3,700 games. Like, that's not even the losses. I mean, he managed like 6,000 games. That's crazy.
Yeah. And back in the day, yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was gonna
say, I talked about when we had Woe on that, I was my not fascination, but I've always appreciated managers and bench coaches and stuff because my love for baseball grew at a lot faster speed than my ability to play baseball. So I kind of just started to learn the game more than being able to actually play it. And so had to give a little nod to the managers here on my list.
This one's an insane one. And like Connie Mack, like I think he like put teams together himself back in the day. That's what like some of the managers used to do. They just don't last that long, like in one spot. Like a lot of his games managed were, Philadelphia Athletics. And like, nobody's going to last 50 years in a job, in a managing job. We see so many managerial turnovers. There's at least 5 spots a year that open up. And, granted, maybe it does happen considering there's more teams. That's another thing. There's less teams and less games on the schedule when Connie Mack was doing this, and he still has the most wins by a lot.
Yeah.
And there's a funny story because Connie Mack, I feel like an old soul telling all these random baseball stories that I've heard, but Connie Mack was managing in, I want to say it was the 40s because he was out of there before the 50s, but he was managing in the 40s and he was really old in his 80s. And he would call for a pinch hitter, and that guy would have been retired. Like he retired decades before. So he's like calling for a pinch hitter on a guy that he managed 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
grab a bat, you. And it's like, you're losing your mind. That guy's been out of the game for a long time. So
yeah. I had a feeling this was the case. So I had to Google it really quick. He lost more games than he won.
Yeah.
He lost 3,948 games. He almost lost 4,000. He managed 7,755 games.
And that guy was probably never married at all. If he was, then probably not for long. That's just a lot of life in baseball. And he played too. He was a player.
Yeah, that's essentially 48 seasons he managed.
Christ.
I could look up the official how many it was, but I just divided it by 162, and it's basically like 48 seasons.
And even insane. Probably even more because 162 games, that wasn't a thing until much later.
Yeah.
So God, that is a good one. I like the list that we did. That was fun.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'm like Steven said, there's so many records out there. We know we didn't touch them all. We only chose 3 each. We tried to avoid some of the obvious ones. So if
let us know your favorite.
If we missed a good one, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know. And Tyler, I think we shut it down again.
Once again, there we go. We were worried we wouldn't have a lot of content this week, and we pushed an hour, I think. So
yeah, we had the hitter call time a few times early in the at bat, and we just we shut him down again. You guys can follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at @shutdown_inning. Go check us out. Spotify, Apple, wherever you find your podcast, YouTube, we are on. And we're looking forward to opening day for sure. And see you guys next time.
That's what's up.